Anila, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Good to have me at the Asia Tech Journal interview over here.
Anila, excited to have you with us. Conversational AI is something which has become just so much more. I think it was always extremely, talked about piece, right? A plugin that I think every organization which is operating in a digital ecosystem should have, right? But I think in a post 2020 environment, it's become just so much more critical in many ways, right? The world has come online. To create physical infrastructure, I think is just so difficult. And the fact of the matter is that the consumer priorities are changing and shifting, right? I think that consistency that you can bring in with artificial intelligence with a conversational format is that you can continue to re-engage the customer, right? Which just improves the ROI of brands in a very different way, right? This becomes a very excited conversation in that context, right? And of course, much more that we're going to cover through this podcast, right? But before to do that, I'd love you to quickly introduce yourself. You've been a professional, you've been an entrepreneur. Would love to understand, your journey, and then dive into the conversation on Haptik from there on.
Sure. No, absolutely. So I am the Vice President of Asia Pacific at Haptik.
Right.
And, my career actually started out with analytics, right? So I did almost 8 years of data sciences, hardcore analytics for companies like Apple and Dell, all in the Silicon Valley. I think, just the appreciation of data truly came from just working in this industry. And that same appreciation has continued, right? Even into Haptik. Like Haptik is a conversational commerce company. And I just love the fact that conversational commerce is now being so well known, right? A few years back, it would probably not even be used in that manner. But now, with WhatsApp talking about it, Facebook talking about it, Instagram, everyone is using that word. And in just a simple explanation, right? And I do this quite a bit. Conversational commerce is about your brand interacting with users in a conversational manner through chat, through voice, using AI chatbots. That's what it very simply means overall, right? And truly for Haptik, it's been exciting to sort of accelerate the world into conversational commerce, and that's truly our tagline, right? We want to accelerate brands into this world of conversational commerce, and if you just think about how the landscape has changed, right? Almost 20 years ago, if you did not have a website, your brand did not have an identity. Right? And then the next 10 years, it's all about the mobile apps. People didn't even have a website. Right? Like people just kept having mobile apps after mobile apps. Your phone would get full and you would delete stuff and install stuff. But I think today is the age of, the social channels, right? When we talk about conversations on social channels, if you do not have presence on your WhatsApps, Instagram, Facebook, it's almost like you don't exist. How much ever retail outlets you might have, how much ever other presence you might have, right? And that's what we're trying to create, is this kind of awareness that the world has changed and you need to catch up, and Haptik will help you do that, right? And I think another aspect is that, see, if you talk about the AI chatbot industry itself, right? Why did I not introduce myself as, hey, we're an AI chatbot company, but I specifically spoke about conversational commerce? There's actually a reason for that, right? Now with AI chatbots being around, you're like, hey, okay, great, I have a chatbot on my website. Great, I'll extend it to my mobile apps, I'll extend it to channels. It is not about extending them. It's about creating an identity of your brand on those channels, right? And we have a strategic partnership with Meta. A lot of things comes first to us, and then we work with them. Imagine actually working with Meta to decide on the WhatsApp commerce features and all the features that actually come out, right? And the reason for that is, we have some of the largest customers who have scale, who have complexity, so it becomes an amazing testing ground. So at Haptik, we get a lot of things first, and we're working with industry leaders to actually pave the way for conversational commerce, and that's truly exciting. And I think for us, this market is a lot about education, right? You are educating the market about how things are changing and how things are changing so fast. On a daily basis, I'm speaking to CXOs, from telecom, retail, financial services, just all across, entertainment, internet, and just educating them, saying, okay, it's great that you're creating good customer experience, but you need to sort of replicate your brand presence on these channels, and it's almost like tomorrow, if you cease to exist everywhere else, that WhatsApp identity will still take you forward and will still be the core of your business.
Very interesting, Anila. I many questions, right? But before I get on to discussing, the dynamism, for example, that is now today prevalent, right? Which is the kind of complexity that we were never prepared for, right? We're going to talk about influence as well, right? Because to me, I think that's one thing which is, the way it's changed, right, is absolutely, phenomenal, right? But I think it just creates a very different, complex environment for business, right? But before I do all of that, I'd love to understand the impact, right? I'm sure an example, or e-commerce, I think, and like you said, right? I mean, commerce continues to be the primary, focus area. And I think that's the case for every brand, right? Because, in the last 2.5 years, we've become a very ROI centric, business have become very ROI centric, right? I think it's a very clear, I think cost of implementation, while it's become a factory cost, I think the ROI expectation has become much more clearer, right? It's not a hygiene anymore. What's been the impact? I'd love to understand that. And, if you could possibly spread it across, say, a couple of industries, because, Haptik is partners with many players. I think it will be lovely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. See, in terms of the outcome you can generate from this capability, right? Hands down, of course, it's about improving your customer experience. So you're talking about direct increase to your CSAT, to your NPS, right? While that's just the start of the outcomes that can be generated, the focus nowadays is on acquiring customers. How many leads have been generated? And the one that I appreciate the most is that direct revenue generation. You can actually have a line item in your P&L to tell you that this is the revenue generated because you deployed an AI chatbot on all these channels, right? So very powerful across all of these outcomes. And when we're speaking to different customers, it is based on these, right? We define the outcome they can generate, and then we work towards that. So just to give you some examples, So JioMart, leading retailer out of India, you can just understand the scale of it. 200 plus stores. They have 10,000 plus queues, 100,000 orders a day, right? And they do 30 to 45% of their business on WhatsApp. Now that's the scale that we're talking about. Another example would be someone like, say, a Disney Hotstar, right? So many of their customers. In one day, they reached out to almost 40 million users. One day of WhatsApp interactions, right? So it's about the fact that you have all of these, users of yours, your customers are there, right? You want to engage them. You want to, make them interact with your products, with your services, get to understand more, actually directly purchase, right? Like another example, of course, is Upstocks. Upstocks, everybody knows, they are letting you sign up to their IPOs from a few clicks on a WhatsApp commerce bot, right? So every industry is utilizing it, and some, like, it's almost like a myth that I want to break, that conversational commerce does not only apply to retail and e-commerce companies, right? When we speak about conversational commerce, it's about interacting with your users through all facets of business, from pre-purchase, purchase to post-purchase. So I know the word commerce, like little confusing. Yeah. But it's like everything, right? All of the interactions that the brand is doing. So I could tell you telecom examples. I could say, retail and e-commerce. Obviously, that's something everyone expects. I could say fintech examples, right? Because you are acquiring customers. Assume, I was actually on the Upstocks website doing a sign-up process, right? I'm going through each process. Imagine I just drop off in the middle. I could actually get a notification on my WhatsApp saying, hey, Anila, you have actually, stopped your sign-up with midway. Why don't you continue it right here? And I would just continue it right there, and I would finish it. And then, whether I want to invest in any of their offerings, I could do it instantly, right? So that's truly the power, where you're always on your phone, you're used to chatting. The numbers are that almost 90% of users prefer chat as a medium of interaction with their brand.
Interesting. Anila, I'm going to interject there, right? Because that's a very interesting point that you kind of highlighted, right? Now, what is happening is, and I think WhatsApp is something that we've become very, very familiar with, right? In fact, it's become like a default platform. What is happening is, because of this entire marketing push, right? So, say, for example, if my number is in 100 places, right? I mean, now those brands are kind of pushing for it, right? Possibly my number is in across multiple other databases, right? So they are pushing for it, right? What is now happening is, and my sense is, I think this is, while of course there is no concrete number on this, right? Because, WhatsApp is a privately held, network, right? But I think what I sense and see around all of, say, friends, colleagues, acquaintances, right, who you talk to, there's a certain fatigue which has started to already come in, right? How do you see that, right? I mean, because of this entire push of sorts, right, and there is no filtration whatsoever, it's becoming very, very cumbersome. What's your sense of it, right? I mean, are these early days, and that's the reason we see the kind of traction that we do, right? That's one. Second, is there a very serious dependence on WhatsApp? I mean, I, as a consumer, if I have a choice, I would want to switch out of an ecosystem which is, say, for example, there is a commercial intervention, right? Even if I have to pay for it, right? I would want that to be a private environment of sorts where I can continue to prioritize my conversations, right, with people. It's a mechanics for them to reach out to me, right? If I want to do it with brands, I'll possibly do it in a different way, right? What's your sense of it, right? I mean, are you seeing this kind of a fatigue? Is this to me seems to be a very, very large channel, right? I mean, in fact, one of the primary reasons of people moving out of SMS as an ecosystem was largely that, they were being bombarded with, SMSs pretty much on all of your banking transactions, all of your marketing transactions, so on and so forth, right? And then WhatsApp, because it was the private sort of play, it became a default go-to, right? But again, with that medium, we're essentially entering the same zone, right? What's your sense of it, right? Are we talking about the kind of impact that we are, largely because it's early days? Will it start to normalize? What are the other things that are happening? I'd love to understand some of that.
Sure. So let me give you some statistics, right? So we have 575 million WhatsApp monthly active users in India on a 1.3 billion population, right? So you have extreme masses sitting together on one channel. In Southeast Asia, you have more than 90% of internet users using WhatsApp, right?
Sure.
Now, so everyone is here on this channel, right? Mm-hmm. It is becoming the medium of communication. Now, in terms of your brands reaching out to you on WhatsApp, right? So WhatsApp and us are actively working together to ensure that WhatsApp does not become an SMS. It does not become like messages where you're overwhelmed. So what happens is there is a brand health when they are sending out all of these notifications and everything. As and when you're giving that input saying, hey, I want to report this, I want to block this, right? It's actually adding and pulling out numbers and points away from this brand health. At some point, it could always be that, hey, you need to send extremely personalized, extremely relevant messages to your user base. So there is no mass bombarding that's going to happen, right? The second thing is WhatsApp wants to ensure that you're creating value on these channels. Hence, its partnership with Haptik, saying it's not just about these one-way interactions. It should be that the user is able to, purchase via WhatsApp. They're able to explore your products. They're able to, give like a customer support request, solve their requests directly, right? So it's about creating value on these channels and not making it one-way interactions where there's no response from the user as well, right? So many checks and balances are kept in place. Like I said, in terms of the health, in terms of value creation for the user, so that when I get a message on WhatsApp for an interaction, it's because there is some context. Just a more recent example would be that I think I participated in an event. And when I got a WhatsApp notification, it was because I participated in that event. It was highly relevant for me. They have all of this information, right? So truly the value is, it's not just a front end. this front end is fully connected into your CRMs, your ticketing systems, your e-commerce systems, and it's making it very contextual about, hey, at what point did Anila make this purchase? Did she add to cart and stop midway? Did she sign up and then explore our services? So there's so much context that this is the difference, and this is what will make WhatsApp stand out and actually succeed in this market.
Interesting. Now, another piece that I think is very, very critical, right? While I understand and kind of concur with a lot of what you're saying, right? So, and as somebody who's a promoter or business owner, right, I would definitely resonate with a cause like this, right? I would want to bring in that ability to interact with the consumer, right? In case he or she is left midway, right? To re-engage, all of that, right? Now, the other thing which has happened, right? And my question continues to be around the kind of impact and efficiency, right? And the I think precision also becomes very, very important in the larger scheme of things, right? Now, what is happening is, and especially when you have something which is literally coming into your inbox, right, on your chat, something which is very, very personal in that sense, right? Now, what is happening is that the consumer in the ecosystem, right? So a lot of this purchase that is being driven, like especially this last 2.5 years that we've been seeing, a lot of this purchase is essentially happening from a digital ecosystem, right? So you come across something, you're seeing something on Instagram, or you're seeing something on Facebook, or possibly somewhere else. You have a certain layer of influence, or there is somebody in your circuit who's doing something, and you kind of get influenced by that, right? Now, in the last 2.5 years, the layer of content, for example, has just kind of exploded, right? How? Because it's gotten, creation of content is kind of democratized, right? Which essentially means that the consistency and the predictability in patterns and, how, for example, sales is going to fly, and the kind of product that, person A and person B can like, just becomes so much more dynamic, right? Now, while I understand for a fractured ecosystem that existed before 2020, right? There was a requirement of a tool or a product, right, which could weave in the experience across all of these points of sale, right, or points of engagement. Last 2 years have been very, very differentiated, right? Like I said, right? And while that dichotomy is kind of, we are beyond that dichotomy to a larger extent. I'm not going to say completely, right? To a larger extent. The bigger problem has become that my preferences as a consumer can change and shift very, very quickly, right? And I'm in an environment where it's all pull based, right? As soon as I come onto WhatsApp, right, be it pre-purchase, post-purchase, right, this becomes a push sort of a behavior, right? I think there's a very clear line that exists between the two processes, right? What's your sense of it, right? I mean, I still continue to in a way ask the same question, right? Is this becoming overwhelming at a certain level, right? I mean, you're talking about hygiene, you're talking about health, so on and so forth, right? The fact of the matter is today, because of the ability for brands to be digitally present, I am not engaging with 20, 30, 40 of the top brands. I am engaging with 200, 300, 400, right? Whoever is giving a better value and the best value. My ecosystems of consumption are very, while they're coming from the same channel, right? Which could possibly be Instagram, right? I could be consuming from a much larger set of brands, right? What do you make out of this? I mean, to me, it's a very, very complex play, right? All of these guys will eventually come after me, right? Because they are flying on a certain purchase or intent that I've kind of shown, right? I am getting worried, right? What's your sense of it? So while it's great as from a business owner standpoint, right? From a consumer standpoint, I still feel it to be very intrusive in many ways, right? While I would want some pieces of it for sure, but I still feel it to be very intrusive. How do you break it down?
Sure. No, fair question. I think it's probably on everyone's minds, right? So when we talk about WhatsApp as a channel, right, there are two parts to it. One is, of course, we're talking about these notifications that you're receiving, and then there is, of course, the WhatsApp conversations that are happening,
sure,
with an AI chatbot, value creation, support, commerce, engagement, all of that, right? Now, your concern, of course, is with the first one, which is that, hey, if I had interactions with a brand, great. I would love to interact with the brand just as you would do on different channels. But here, sure, it's a lot more convenient, it's easier, it's quicker, and the experience is obviously like much better, right? Now, the thing is, it is for the brands very clearly to not only sit in this WhatsApp notifications,
sure,
zone, right? And it is for us to sort of move them saying, hey, you cannot just bombard these users, right? You have to create value for them. You have to complete queries. You have to complete purchases end to end, right? And I think that is the main aspect. That is what will ensure that the WhatsApp does not become a messaging, like an SMS bombarding channel, right? And just very recently, we had a post on Facebook just I think last week, where Mark Zuckerberg has posted about the work Haptik has done, saying this is the first ever end-to-end WhatsApp commerce journey that we have done for JioMart ever, right?
Wow.
And when we speak about end-to-end, it's about you coming in, adding a few items of groceries, adding your address, like your PIN code, the delivery, making the payment, completing the payment, and you can even track your order thereafter and make requests. So you see that full journey come through on WhatsApp. I mean, if he's excited about this happening, it's because of that clear focus saying generate value, and that shall be the base no matter what.
Interesting. Anila, I'd love to understand this, right? Now, there are a bunch of other players that are in the market, right? Everybody's trying to cut this market in a very different way, right? There are players who are essentially focusing on, for example, checkouts, right? There's somebody who's recently gotten funded, right? And without naming them, right? They're doing a phenomenal job, right? In a way, what they're doing is they're bringing a universality, right? If I'm a consumer, if I have an intent, right, when I'm actually going out, in a way, this is becoming like a universal repository, right? And then brands can build their presence around it, right? And then they help them sort of engage better, because they have a lot of last mile understanding, they have a behavioral understanding, right? They can kind of assess at what time do I kind of drop out, right? Now, while you are solving for this market in a very different way, right? Eventually, these players are coming in and optimizing for the consumer, right? How are you seeing the competitive landscape coming around? And even conversational AI space, right? There are a couple of other players who come in. It's something which has attracted a lot of funding in the last couple of years, right? What's your sense of it? How is the market kind of evolving from here on? Second, does this become commoditized at some point, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a cost of doing business, right? And I think businesses have become very smart in the last 2.5 years, right? And like I said, it's a very clear ROI expectation, which essentially means that the commercial relationship that, for example, Haptik like players have with brands is essentially going to it will get commoditized, if not already there, over a period of time, right? What's your sense of the future? How do you see that?
Sure. See, with all the other conversational AI brands being there, it's actually a very good sign of the market, right?
Sure.
That people are accepting these, these kind of companies. They're believing in these concepts and these platforms, right? So for me, that's actually a really good sign and something very welcoming, right? So while that's the case, I think for brands and why maybe Haptik is different, right? See, at the end of the day, we are in the space of natural language processing, which is a branch of machine learning, right? The more data you have, the stronger is your understanding of the user intent, how you respond, conversation design, all of those things, right? So I think with us having 9 years in the market, where at the initial part, we ourselves were a B2C company and interacting with brands, solving their queries and things like that, it created such a large base. We have over 4 billion interactions that we have processed, right? So the NLP and all the learning is coming from that. So I think the biggest advantage that Haptik has, and with brands like Jio and JioMart, is just the sheer scale. And scale is essential for the industry that we are in, right? And I think the second thing is, like I mentioned initially, it's not about just enabling your AI chatbot on just multiple channels. It's not so simple, right? It's about conversational commerce. It's about creating your identity on these social channels, right? When we go to a brand, we will create your WhatsApp identity. That's what I think is our differentiator truly, when we're talking about just how we position ourselves in terms of how we are helping them acquire customers, generate revenue, enhance their CX. So that I feel is definitely our strength in where we stand. And something people fail to sort of understand is this being very data-driven, platform and overall industry itself, right?
Right.
The kind of analytics you need to possess needs to be very, very high, because like you mentioned, things are changing so fast. The users are changing, the brand is changing. So you need to have eyes on your performance like never before, right? And that's where, Haptik's analytics gives you that access of your performance, and you always have someone looking at it thinking, how do we keep evolving this solution? And I feel, with other tools in the market, they're all static, right? You build it once, you make it happen, right? But an AI chatbot is a forever evolving capability. It needs to keep enhancing itself. So at any point, if you build it and you're like, hey, my job is done, completely wrong. It has to continuously evolve and improve itself.
Super. Anila, no, I think with what you're saying kind of makes a lot of sense. I think the world is becoming dynamic, and I think the kind of track record that you've had as a company, I think that just helps you solve this better, right? I think the understanding of journeys, the understanding of evolution, I think is absolutely spectacular. And I think last 2.5 years really changed the game in many ways, right? So while I as an individual can have say some of these notions, right, where I don't necessarily want the kind of intrusion, but I think for the world it's just becoming so much more leaner and cleaner in many ways, right? I think which is spectacular, right? And I think the fact of the matter is something which particularly kind of excites me, right, is not necessarily the acquisition, right, but I think it's the post-acquisition engagement that you can build with conversational AI, right? I think the world continues to be still fragmented, right, in many ways. But I think we'll get to coming up with better solutions, right, in the process. And I think that's a function of how all of these silos come together. They start talking to each other a little more firmly, with a little more clarity, sharing data, all of that. It becomes very, very interesting at that level, right? And I think that just becomes content for our next conversation. Hopefully soon that we do that, right? And it's been an absolutely spectacular conversation with you. I'd love to understand and close this conversation with what's the next 2.5 years like, right? For any business leader, this is, they couldn't have possibly asked for a time which is as interesting and as dynamic and as, fast, right? Which I think tests your abilities and potential to understand, comprehend, and react, right? But what are the next 2.5 years like, right? What are the milestones that you've set for yourself? Which are the other markets that you're kind of expanding into? You're already very thick across Asia, but which are the markets that you think you're going to go deeper and have a I'm gonna become like second to India, right? Because I think that's really home turf, right?
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah. So I think India is hometown. That's fair.
Sure.
But of course, we're building very strong presence in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia is a fast-growing market.
Sure.
You have the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. So I think huge market, huge potential, really fast growth that we're experiencing, and which is what is propelling us further and further into this market. And I think for me, for the next 2.5 years is when we move from educating the market to this becoming commonplace. Then we know we have made it, right? We have truly made it. And I think for the business leader, this is a huge opportunity at this point. We're almost at like this inflection point where the outcomes have been proved out, but by very few people, right? So you have that first mover advantage. If you make this happen right now, you will stand out and you will have that gap that people cannot catch up with. So if you are a business leader out there, conversational commerce, conversational AI, it's in the market, it's creating outcomes like never before, and you need to get to know more about it and really move towards it very fast
and implement and advocate it fast, right? I think that's the point. And our last question in this conversation, right? This is a very cliche section of our conversation, right? But I think very, very interesting question, right? Something from your personal journey. You've been an entrepreneur and you're now kind of leading Haptik from the front. You've been a professional. So organizations today, for example, need a lot of intrapreneurship, right? For example, and they need to cultivate and capture, right? Would love you to give out a few tips, right? Possibly a lot of leaders and founders, would hear this conversation, right? Possibly for them, right? And possibly for a lot of people who are working professionals, right, within organizations, but and don't necessarily come from the startup ecosystem standpoint, right? But this is something which has just become such a critical, important muscle in the entire scheme of things, right? And given that the ecosystem that we are in, I think you cannot solve for the challenges that we were never prepared for, right? Unless you have the intent and the ability and that drive. I think that drive really differentiates the mindset. You are at a unique position, right? You've experienced the two, right? And you like I said, right? You're leading it from the front, doing many firsts within Haptik, right? Any message that you would want to give out to people who want to be listening?
Yeah, so I have a lot of young people, when they talk to me, they feel that only if you're like the co-founder,
sure,
is the company yours.
Right.
And it's almost like only they will work and they will feel for the company, and no one else is of value, right? But no, I think entrepreneurship is so critical, because all these leaders in the company are literally building it out, right? Of course, you're following the vision of your founders, but you're playing foundational roles.
Absolutely.
And deciding the future of your organization. So for me, whether the company is my own, personally as like a founder, or the fact that I'm a leader at that company, both are exactly the same, right? I feel emotionally attached equally to both entities. And I think I would want everyone to think of it that way, right? You don't have to quit and start a company of your own to feel that it belongs to you. You have to contribute and feel that ownership wherever you are. And if you feel it's your own, it does become your own. And then you're playing very significant roles in the growth and success of that company.
Super. Anila, it was an absolute pleasure to host you today. Thank you so much for sharing all of these insights, right? This is a difficult market, right? There are many solutions available. I think for the businesses to, across this dissonance and this noise that is out there, to sort of select and identify the right product, right, which would solve for them, is just very difficult, right? But I think technology is going to help them do better, right? I think assess the impact better. If a consumer is taking something from them or not taking something, I think there's intelligence across all of these elements, right? And I think it helps them improve, right? This is a better ecosystem than the almost the black hole that businesses have survived in for the longest time, right? And when I say that, I'm not only talking about the smaller players in the market, right, but also the largest of all enterprises, right? Because for the legacy systems that they've had or they've built, I think, which are infested with inefficiencies beyond comprehension, right? I think conversational AI and companies like Haptik just make them so much more superior in terms of understanding the shift in the consumer behavior, because there is no other potentially potent channel which can help them engage with so many at a given in one go, right? And I think that is the need of the hour in a market which is as dynamic, right? And it was absolutely spectacular to have you with us. Thanks for taking the time out, and like I said, look forward to having you with us much sooner. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.